Born in Connecticut in 1903, Gilbert Adrian was exposed to the fine arts of fashion from a young age by his parents who ran a successful millinery business. Adrian's passion came alive as he studied costume design at the Parsons New York School for Fine and Applied Art in New York City, ultimately transferring to Parsons' Paris branch to be closer to Parisian style and couture. While in Paris, he was noticed for his talent, and as a result, returned to New York to design for Irving Berlin's Music Box Revue on Broadway. Adrian's first big break for costume design for the movies happened in 1925 in the first MGM film of Mae Murray, The Merry Widow. Following that, he started working with Cecil B. DeMille, and in 1928, they both moved to MGM, where Adrian remained at the studio until 1942. At MGM, Adrian meets his first muse, Greta Garbo, whom he transformed into a goddess of glamour adulated by women worldwide. Adrian dressed and transfigured the constellation of all their stars, including Katharine Hepburn, Joan Crawford, Norma Shearer, Judy Garland and many others for some of their most memorable film roles. On a normal day, the highly creative Adrian produced 50 to 75 sketches. Over the course of his career at MGM, Adrian designed and created costumes for over 250 films. For the next decade, by becoming director of MGM's costume department, Adrian upset the notion of glamour in just 13 years of his career. He possessed the instinct for designing for the camera and the shot, dressing his stars in the most dramatic, scene-stealing silhouettes of signature bias-cut gowns, sharp-tailored suits, and draw-dropping fabric and embellishment choices. For example, he made the masculine shoulders of Joan Crawford more distinct and used shoulder-padded tops to enhance them. This look made her the diva we know today, and invented the silhouette of the 1940s. Not only were his designs glamorous and inspiring, they were also universal and democratic, as Adrian would design all the garments in a film, from the top star to the lesser associated supporting roles. His creations transcended the screen and soon became desired worldwide. In 1932, his white mousseline de soie dress worn by Joan Crawford in Letty Linton was copied for the masses, and sold over 500,000 units of this one dress throughout the country. Adrian knew how women liked to look, feel, and move in a beautiful dress, on screen or off. A great lover of art, Adrian incorporated Cubism, Futurism, and Surrealism into his collections. In his modern museum collection of 1945, Adrian juxtaposed abstract shapes and colors, paying homage to Pablo Picasso, as well as to Georges Braque. This fusion of modern art with fashion would become his signature from the mid and late 1940s. The dress, entitled Shades of Picasso, is a masterpiece from this collection, which was featured at the 1945 American Fashion Critics Awards ceremony, when Adrian won his Coty Award. While at MGM, Adrian was inspired by Surrealism and translated his approach into his designs. For example, Dalí Evening Dress, created from a textile designed by the artist Salvador Dalí for the firm Wesley Simpson, played with the Prince effect. Adrian introduced the black area on the left shoulder, like a face in the profile, anthropomorphized, furthering the surrealism. Besides, Adrian commissioned Tony Duquette, with whom he worked while at MGM, to decorate the modern salon interior of his Beverly Hills store, where every woman could feel cherished like a star. He used classic Hollywood references, floating columns, oriental canopies, and a color scheme known as Glamour to set off his clothes and his customers, as a jeweler uses black velvet to display his diamonds. Adrian created an oval room, in order to work in the round, because he thought a woman needed to be looked at from all angles to design their clothes, just as he did with his actresses. Adrian saw the role of the couture designer as providing all the fashion amenities to his clientele. When he was operating the Beverly Hills and the New York salons from 1944 to 1952, they offered customers all the conveniences one would expect to find in the establishment of a top-rank couturier. Thus, he created shoes, jewelry, and his perfume line, named Saint and Sinner, which came in rectangular bottles with stoppers in the shape of his trademark symbol, the Greek Ionian capital. His advertisements appeared everywhere, in Vogue, Harper's Bazaar, Town and Country and Life magazines. Adrian was a great painter and an art collector. Always admiring Africa, he visited the continent in 1949, when he took a 6-week motor trip through the Sudan, Kenya, and the Belgian Congo. When he returned, he produced 19 oil paintings of Africa, which were later exhibited in New York. During his trip, he also collected a group of African masks, ceremonial blades, carved vessels, and sculptures. Adrian's painting, titled African Jungle with Figures, has his signature fluid line detail displayed throughout the painting. The emblem of the current Adrian original brand, a parrot mixed with a butterfly, is an ode to two discerning elements of his inspirations. Indeed, Adrian owned a parrot named Birdie, of whom he often painted its portrait as well as using its imagery and colors in his collections. Upon retiring, Adrian and his wife Janet spent 8 months of the year in Brazil, which further influenced his paintings and love of the rainforest. He collected butterflies in every size, shape, and color. During his lifetime, Adrian often incorporated the wing shapes, colors, and patterns into his collections, whether it be on the silver screen or his own label. So, when Garbo left the studio, Adrian declared, "When the glamour goes for Garbo, it goes for me as well." As a result, in 1941, Adrian left MGM to open up his own clothing store in Beverly Hills. Even though he was advised that it wouldn't be the best time with the war, he had already made up his mind. He created 2 lines for retail, one labeled Adrian Original for special couture creations and private clients, and another as Adrian Custom, a more encompassing American designer line with off-the-rack designs. Although he knew his Hollywood designs were too extreme for off-screen, he adapted their esprit, grace, and glamour into his collections. The war and its limitations on production and fabric further influenced Adrian as he adjusted to the new reality, making a virtue of the war's restrictions by eliminating cuffs, lapels, and reducing the size of collars and the number of pockets. Adrian was a master of marrying the construction of the silhouette with the proportions, and became known for elements such as diagonal closings, dolman, and kimono sleeves. For the next decade, he provided women with that special touch of glamour and its unique sense of style, enhancing the woman's spirit. Adrian retired from business in 1952 after suffering a heart attack. He lived the remainder of his life in Brazil, before passing at age 56 in 1959. So, Adrian had a significant impact on fashion, particularly through his work as a costume designer in Hollywood during the 1930s and 1940s. His influence extended beyond the screen to mainstream fashion, shaping trends and defining the style of an era. Here are a few key ways he impacted fashion. 1. Glamour and the Hollywood look. Adrian was the chief designer for MGM Studios and dressed some of the biggest stars of the golden age of Hollywood, including Greta Garbo, Joan Crawford, and Katharine Hepburn. His designs contributed to the Hollywood glamour look, characterized by sleek lines, luxurious fabrics, and an overall sense of elegance and sophistication. The glamour scene on screen influenced fashion trends in real life, as people wanted to emulate the iconic styles they saw in movies. 2. Joan Crawford's broad shoulders. Adrian is famously credited with popularizing the broad-shouldered look, particularly through his work with Joan Crawford. Her naturally broad shoulders were accentuated by Adrian's designs, which featured padded shoulders and angular lines. This became a major trend in the 1930s and 1940s, shaping the silhouette of women's fashion during the era. His designs helped to shift women's fashion toward a more powerful, structured look. 3. The Wizard of Oz and iconic costumes. Adrian designed the costumes for The Wizard of Oz, 1939, creating iconic looks such as Dorothy's blue gingham dress and the ruby slippers. His work on this film left an indelible mark on popular culture and continues to influence fashion and costume design to this day. 4. Sleek tailoring and sculptural design. Adrian's background in architecture influenced his approach to fashion. He was known for his precise tailoring and ability to sculpt fabric into dramatic, geometric shapes that flattered the body. This architectural approach to clothing was innovative for the time and contributed to a more modern, structured silhouette in women's fashion. 5. From costume design to ready-to-wear. In the 1940s, Adrian left MGM and started his own fashion label. He brought Hollywood glamour to everyday clothing, offering women ready-to-wear designs that retained the elegance and drama of his screen costumes. His clothing became highly sought after, and he was one of the first designers to successfully bridge the gap between costume design and high fashion. 6. Enduring legacy. Adrian's impact on fashion remains visible today, especially in the way contemporary designers approach the balance between glamour and structure. His ability to create iconic, memorable looks has influenced generations of designers and continues to inspire the worlds of both fashion and costume design. But why is he a forgotten designer among the masses? Unlike other designers such as Coco Chanel, Christian Dior, or even Edith Head, another notable costume designer of the time, Adrian didn't maintain a high profile outside of Hollywood. His name didn't become as synonymous with fashion as those of designers who were involved in the fashion world outside of film. As fashion moved into the more avant-garde and abstract trends of the 1960s and beyond, the focus of costume design shifted toward more artistic and experimental forms. This may have left Adrian's more traditional, Hollywood glamour style less prominent in the fashion world's evolving narrative. Adrian worked during the era when costume designers were more often recognized as part of a film's production rather than individual celebrities. During the golden age of Hollywood, many designers, including Adrian, were somewhat invisible in the public eye, as they worked behind the scenes, and actors were often given more attention for their look in films than the designers themselves. Adrian was deeply invested in Hollywood and didn't venture much into the broader fashion industry. While designers like Valentino, Yves Saint Laurent, and others made waves both on the runway and in Hollywood, Adrian's focus remained largely on the films he worked on, which limited his name recognition in other realms. After leaving MGM, Adrian established his own fashion business but struggled to adapt to the changing post-war fashion landscape. His designs were seen as more glamorous and extravagant than what post-war fashion demanded, leading to a decline in his brand's prominence. Edith Head, who succeeded Adrian at MGM, became the most prominent costume designer of the era and is often the one most associated with classic Hollywood cinema. As a result, Adrian's legacy may have been somewhat eclipsed by Head's dominance in the field. Despite being somewhat forgotten by the general public, Adrian's influence on film and fashion, especially his work on The Wizard of Oz and other classic films, remains significant among fashion historians and film buffs.